After last week's hype, the update known as the Real MVP is finally out. So let's go through it right after Skin Baron. Skin Baron is a marketplace with millions of skins to buy and sell for real money. This means having cash not locked to your Steam account. Speaking of Steam, it's 30% cheaper on Skin Baron compared to the Steam market. As you can see, front page offers quick recommendations, but you also have your precious categories at the top with previews of each skin if you're picky. The selling process is super simple, it's safe to use, and your money goes straight to your bank account. But make sure you click the link below to explore Skin Baron's marketplace, the sponsor of this video. Alright, let's start with the fact that the maps wasn't really a surprise to most of us, but they're finally here. We now have Thera and Mills added to competitive, casual, and deathmatch, Memento and Assembly added to Wingman, and Pool Day to Arms Race. I've already talked about these maps, so this isn't necessarily shocking news. But we have seen a lot of map fixes recently and that sort of thing, since a lot of people obviously ended up playtesting them before the update knowing that they would be added. It's important to fix any of those issues for balanced gameplay, but making sure the maps are as free of bugs as possible before being official CS2 business is of course crucial. But speaking of, for the first time in CS2's history, we have community maps officially in the game. And that is a big deal, since Counter-Strike's roots have always been about community-made maps. Ultimately, the biggest impact to the gameplay loop is new maps. That is what makes casual gameplay exciting, it just feels fresh to play. But other changes are of course kinda needed to incorporate the map's release, to give them some hype, you know, just to make them more appealing to play. That's why we now have this patch note saying in competitive matchmaking, per map skill groups are now revealed after you earn 2 wins on a map. Before that, it was 10, which everyone agreed was too much. But this change means that you could theoretically speedrun a rank for all the maps in one day. Now this alone is a great update, but there's another huge one that wasn't even mentioned in the patch notes. It's written here in the blog. It's not only easier to gain a rank now, but they've redistributed the ranks for all players. Don't know if you guys remember this, but I made a video on Leadify's public data library, and the data showed that there wasn't a single global elite player. This update is made to effectively fix that. Speaking of more map-related updates, you would think that Valve has paid attention to Duck and his compilations of stuck positions and other goofy videos, since we now have patch notes related to that on 3 competitive maps at least. There's a lot of stuck positions on other maps that weren't included in this update, which I find a bit strange, but on some good news, this hiding spot on Vertigo is removed. I think that's a good decision. Then we get to the new MVP panels, which have a new look, and Ale has a really great showcase of the animations, which look super cool and are probably the most underrated part of this update. We have the General, 3 kills, 4 kills, the Ace, the Fuse, Plant, Fire damage, and Nade damage. Honestly, very high quality stuff. I'll link you his post in the description. Then we get to this messy section of the patch notes focusing on video settings. The first part of this focuses on pop-ups. In fact, Valve has released an entire Steam support page related to the video settings recommendations. In here, you'll see the different talking points, the biggest one being about using NVIDIA G-Sync together with V-Sync and Reflex. I feel like this part, especially this part, speaks to a lot of people who are currently experiencing performance issues. The reason why is because of how Valve phrased it in this text, but here's the summary. When a game runs at a frame rate higher than your refresh rate, screen tearing and micro stuttering can happen. V-Sync helps by synchronizing the frame rate with the display, but as we all know, it increases input latency. This latency can be reduced with NVIDIA G-Sync and NVIDIA Reflex. So combining all the 3 settings together will optimize both visuals and responsiveness, but may slightly lower the frame rate. That's at least what Valve is saying here, not quote unquote, but you can of course take your time, pause the video, and read for yourself if you prefer. Following other video settings, in the past you could change the main menu background in here, but now they've removed those options to clean up the space since you could already do it in the main menu, and they've decided to only focus on the video settings that matter. For example, this section called frame pacing, which now has V-Sync, Reflex, and the new FPS slider caps. Also by default, you now have 200 FPS in menus, so that's why your game feels a little smoother after this update, with the previous default being 120. And the last bit of interesting knowledge to give you is that this preview map is now running with the in-game FPS slider and not the menu slider, but that's pretty much it. Now let's talk about it. A lot of people expected something major, so this update might seem unimpressive to a lot of you. That is understandable. At the same time, I think it's been blown out of proportion from the community. The maps was pretty much confirmed with everything going on. I guess a new weapon case was also something we expected, but nothing else was really on the same level. Realistically, I wasn't even expecting an operation, but it is what it is. However, it needs to be said, this update ultimately fixed matchmaking, plus it finally introduced community maps, so just from that perspective, it's a very good update. But please comment down below your thoughts on this. Let me know. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.